I'm leaning back. No need to adjust the camera. What's that? Okay. Right. 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 Huh. Oh, that's stupid. Maybe. Right. 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 Okay. Right. Let's see. Live video. Yeah, I have three of them in there. I'll add that Elon Musk one. Hmm. Maybe it just needs therapy, you know? Awesome. Okay. I'm ready, man. I grabbed all the archived articles so we get past the paywall. So that archive.ph file is the
How's it going, folks?
hello. This is Market Fire Podcast. I am the lead co-host, Dr. Danny Bombay.
He's not
Uh,
lead anything. Do not.
I'm
No.
also technically not a doctor. I identify as a doctor, and in 2022, you can't stop me from doing that. So nothing you can do about that. This podcast is here to catalog late stage central banking. So that's what we're here
No,
to do.
no, it's not.
Now, I just listen. I go on Twitter and I see people using the phrase late stage capitalism, and I just feel the need to correct those people. It's late stage central banking. Oh, there we go. Howdy, y'all. We're Market Fire Podcast. Tell you what, pew, pew, pew. Don't you bring that Texas Pete nonsense around us. We ain't
That's
eating
right.
it. Pew,
That's
pew,
right.
pew.
Not from
do
Texas.
this.
Get a rope.
That's right. So we're going to jump into some of these stories. We got a couple of good ones today, don't we, big man?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As always, right? So,
Well,
obviously, if you're here for the first time, we've switched our transition to our show, which was a more traditional podcast, right?
right.
Over to this live show. We've done 2 lives now. This is our third. We're going to try to get to these couple of the weeks. I'm putting this on record so that when people watch the recorded that we then post up, that you know
Right.
what we're doing and how we're doing it and that kind of stuff. So, Danny doesn't care about those kind of things, but,
I
me,
don't.
I do.
Yeah, which is why you focus on this stuff and I work on the logos, which,
Mhm.
we're always, for some reason, we're always in some sort of locked in a battle of wits when it comes to logos for some reason. But
Eh,
we've been tracking this story from the very beginning. My cousin Elon Musk, I'm kidding, he's not my cousin, but my best friend Elon Musk says he might actually end up closing on Twitter in 2 days. By the
Right.
way, we're going to be live on Friday again, just to to see if this thing actually closes. And the cap table dropped.
Well, we'll see if. Okay, 2 things about this
Yeah.
story. First, there is obviously, you and I talked about it last week. There's a petition going around Twitter, the offices, as it were, because you and I talked about it last week. I think the day after it came out that Elon Musk said, hey, sure, I'll buy it, and then I'm going to lay off 75% of the employees, right?
Yeah.
And so
And
you and
I
I
think-
talked about how that was a great scam to get
Yep.
the employees to revolt against the current board. And it looks
and
like
I
it's
think
worked.
Yep. And you think so?
Well, it's worked from the standpoint of the employees are upset, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They're upset. It's
It
made
is.
national news media.
It hasn't worked in the sense that our speculation was, at least my speculation was, that the intent behind that action was to get the employees to revolt so the board wouldn't close the deal.
Which is, I'm still thinking that's what's going to happen. Um,
Okay.
Now he says by Friday. Here's why the Friday comes out. Right, the Friday comes out because that's his deadline to buy or go back to court.
Okay.
That's where the Friday deadline. I haven't seen anything that says he's officially come out and said he's buying it by Friday, but that's where the date comes from on the story. Is he's got to do it. It kind of sends, and the article I sent Danny yesterday, it actually has a list of banks that kind of shore up the gap from the investors that he lost, right? And that kind of stuff.
And
go ahead.
And there's another thing that it was floating around, which is I don't know the authenticity of it, but there was an open letter to Elon Musk from Twitter employees with their list of demands. And my simple question to you people is, all of you went to Stanford and Yale and Harvard. What do you think? Like, what leverage do you have here to demand something from a billionaire that has promised to lay you off? What? What do you think you're going to achieve? Hey, you want to fire us? If you keep us, you're going to have to.
Have to what? Like and see this petition they're sending around. A part of the article yesterday I read, the petition that they're sending around essentially says, "Hey, you're not going to fire anybody. Like, I want you to agree right now that you're not going to fire anybody. That nothing's essentially going to change. Blah 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 blah." Which is all it is. Now I will, and I always respect the hustle. Now, even if I think it's scammy behavior, even if I think it's low hanging fruit, Meta and Google have both turned around and used this as an opportunity to poach some employees from their Twitter.
Fine, take them.
So Elon Musk comes out and says, "Hey, I'm going to fire 75% of you. Not really which 75%, but I'm going to hire 75%. Meta and Google go, "Ha ha! Yes, sir. I like you. I like you. I like you. I like you."
Which is what he wanted. So he doesn't. So these people are getting picked off by Meta and Google. Guess what? No severance packages, no unemployment insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. We're not a political show, but I'll make the reference here. It's self-deporting, right? He doesn't have to lay off 75% if 40% of them walk out the door. And so what I was saying was, there's two avenues here. There's two theories, two conspiracy theories, because I am the resident conspiracy theorist of this program. And one of the conspiracy theories, which is that he was doing it, which we mentioned, he was doing it to get the employees to revolt, to get the board to decline the deal.
Right.
And the second one was, if the deal does go through, he wants as many people as possible to walk out the door.
Because it costs him nothing. It costs the company nothing.
Correct.
So out of 40% of the people that have left the company in the last 2 weeks, 40% have gone to Google, Meta, or TikTok.
Sounds right.
Like,
of course they would. Hey, listen, if you're leaving Twitter because Elon Musk says he's going to come in and make it a free speech platform that's open source and distributed platform and that kind of thing, of course you're going to go to TikTok. It's run by an authoritarian government. Of course you love that. Of course you find that appealing.
No,
Danny. And you find peace in the fact that at least these people have camps, where they're shoving people into. So, for saying the wrong thing. So,
The argument from the employees, according to the petition that they've put out, and it's got all the, we want respect, dignity, protection, blah, blah, blah.
You're not getting any of that.
The argument they're trying to make is, by laying off 75%, it will reduce the end user, right? That we can't support the Twittersphere, whatever you call the...
Right. It's really hard to shadow ban a bunch of people if you don't have your shadow banning team, right?
If you don't have an entire staff of shadow banners and,
it's really hard for my cousins to ban my account for making fun of one of my other cousins, which is why I got banned, if they all work at TikTok. So
I don't understand. Look, when people, and this goes, and again, not a political show, but unions and
Right.
stuff like this is
Yeah.
my issue with unions, that if we
Right.
weren't human beings, I'm okay with unions, but we are. So when you have people trying to talk for a bunch of people, the messages of the individual don't come through, and you get generic garbage, right?
Yeah, so if I have a beef with unionization, it's like there's first of all, the only reason you get such beefy contracts through unions is because the government it's like there's all of these laws that justify or make it legal for unions to behave that way. And by the way, the people who all of these people who support unions, I'm going to make a political statement now. Do I have your permission?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just I love educating people who tend to be more left of center on how unions and minimum wages have been used throughout the world to oppress minority groups. In the United States, in 1960s New York, they said if we don't have formal unionization that the government recognizes, what's going to happen is these black people are going to come here and take white men's jobs, right?
Right.
And so that's what, and that's
And
the
look,
Economist.
unions have done a lot of good.
I'm not saying they haven't.
They made safety in factories. They stopped using kids, right? Child labor and stuff like that. They've done a lot of good.
In the early 1900s in this country, a man used to be able to die with dignity by falling off of a skyscraper. All right. Now you have to die at the ripe old age of 87 because of a heart failure.
You don't want to know how many dead bodies are underneath those New York skyscrapers. You don't want to know. But
isn't it glory for a man to go that way? I was trying to provide for my family and I died. That's great.
Okay, so for example, in this letter, right, that they've been circulating around, which obviously Elon Musk has probably already read and laughed at and pointed at with all his billionaire buddies.
Elon Musk wiped his behind with this. I'm sorry. Elon Musk's butler wiped his behind with this.
Of course, but if I had any chance to negotiate with the potential owner of a company that's coming in to buy my company, let's say, realistic would be the common ground here, right? And the very first thing that they have under respect is we demand leadership to respect the platform and commit to preserving the current headcount. You can't. Nobody. No, he's not gonna. He's not gonna, and he's not.
This kind of language, and I'm going to now use this term, woke. This kind of language is what you see from elite university kids who are like, we demand that the faculty remove this professor, and it's like that. Like I remember reading about like how Gen Z entering the workforce and entering corporate environments was like, and how it was like stupid, and how stupid they are. And one of the things was one of these companies was like, they have a dress code, and one of the people on the team didn't conform to the dress code.
Right.
But it's because they had some sort of medical issue that they had already dealt with, and
so they can't wear wool, or they
can't wear dress shoes. They couldn't wear dress shoes because they had weird feet. They can only wear the New Balance sneakers that are a quintuple E, super wide, whatever. They cleared it with their team. Everything was fine. But they circulated a petition at whatever office this was, the Gen Z, the Zoomers.
Sure.
Because they're like, how come Nancy isn't wearing the dress code? Like, I don't.
Well, and that what you're saying is so spot on, because the second thing they have on here is safety, which they literally just go on here and put out the what's the Protection Act, the National Protection Act, where you can't go based on race and disability, and you know what I mean? Sexual orientation, political beliefs,
discrimination, something about discrimination.
So he already has to abide by those rules. Right. So I don't know why you would even waste anybody's time being on here.
When anybody talks about safety, here's what I expect from where you work: heavy equipment, things above you that could fall on you and crush you.
Sure.
Not about safety of your feelings. Now, if they were saying, hey, listen, I'm really afraid that a server is going to topple me because it's not bolted to the wall, that's a safety issue.
Right. Which we now have OSHA. We now have what unions were originally created to make, right? Safety environments and stuff like that. We now have government programs that oversee those things, right?
Right, and those government programs are stupid, but I'm just saying
But
they
we have
do
them.
exist. They exist,
We have
and I just love what I love about this is when stupidity meets reality, right? And you're so stupid, and I'm saying this, all of these people have master's degrees or more
sure.
from institutions that, because I'm Indian and because of my very slightly above average GPA, would never get into these institutions because I'm competing with other Indian kids who are way harder working at academics than I ever was because I thought it was a waste of time. Uh, I can't fathom going to a company where the guy says, I'm going to fire all of you. The balls it takes. Okay.
He's
The
a
balls.
billionaire. He's a billion. Look, here's my favorite sentence in this entire thing. My favorite sentence in this entire thing. Okay, and I quote: "We demand to be treated with dignity, and not to be treated as mere pawns in a game played by billionaires." End quote.
Dude, you work for a company whose current majority shareholder is a sovereign wealth fund of a country in which none of these women would be allowed to work there,
Right.
and they'd all have to be at home, and they
Yep.
couldn't show their face outside. I'm not,
I know.
and they would not be able to drive to their office because they're not allowed to drive from which. Now, I'm not saying that country's right or wrong, or that how their system is right or wrong.
Mhm.
I'm just saying there's a there's a difference in your values, and I'm just saying Elon Musk might be a little closer to your values than your current corporate overlords, right?
Sure.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, but like I think the employees thought at this point when Elon Musk just kind of threw this out there, right?
Right.
That we're going to get the public behind us if we message it this way. And I just don't think your average everyday person in America or in the world for that matter is really giving a crap about Twitter's employees, right? Like
no, that's untrue. I'm a avid Twitter user, and let me make something very clear, like I made last time. I think he should fire all of them. I think 100%. He should replace.
you realize
100%.
we're live on Twitter right now. So
And thank you, and I just want to thank the team that creates that and supports that product for that. And
Right.
I just want to make something else clear. He should fire everybody and hire the entire team from Truth Social to replace it.
That's hilarious. Go ahead.
It's factual. No, I'm just saying like that. I don't think, and here's something I'll say. It's a more, I guess, whatever. It's a political statement, but
Sure.
I don't think they grasp the contempt that regular people have for them because they live in Silicon Valley, and their entire universe is a fantasy of like just weird woke progressive nonsense, which you're entitled to. I'm not telling you don't go live in that fantasy world. If I could go live in a fantasy world where it was just me and my homies and all we did was street race all day and like talk crap and be racist toward each other in a way that was cordial, I would love to go live in that fantasy world, right?
Right. But we don't live in a fantasy world. I have that argument with the neighborhood uppity whites that you know what I mean? Wonder Bread whites that I live around. I have this argument all the time because I make that argument to them when it comes to what certain things we can and can't do, right? I can't blah, 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 blah in today's world. Well, okay, if we lived in a perfect world, you could do anything you want. Right. But we don't.
We're going to get there.
We live in a I hope so. I really do. I hope we get to a world.
Listen, big man, all I want to do is I want to live in a world where an individual like myself is driving a dually Ram that's rolling coal, and I'm flying the stars and bars, and I'm ripping an AR out the window because this is America, and if I can't do that, am I a free person?
Okay? Are you free? Sure, I get that, but
I'm just saying. Well, I maybe I wouldn't fly the stars and bars. Maybe I'm flying the Gadsden flag, but maybe I'm flying the flag of Goliad, the arm with the bloody sword.
That great flag, by the way. Great flag.
That's my flag right there.
That's a great flag.
If I have a flag, that's my flag. Okay. Yeah.
That is the original come and take it flag, right? Like
That's correct. Yeah.
So been to Goliad, love it. The fort's still there. If you're actually visiting Texas and you've got time, drive over to that little town that's still a little bitty nowhere town.
Right.
It's a mission still standing today. You can stand on the walls of Goliad like those Texans stood on the walls of Goliad against the Spanish army and got their yeah. So
Got their
anyway,
arms cut off. Hence the flag.
so which is actually where the come and take it cannon came from, was from
Oh.
Goliad, right? The
See,
come and take it cannon.
I didn't go to elementary school in Texas. My children will, but I didn't. So I didn't have the Texas history. That's one thing about Texas that I continue to love is this self-perpetuating, oh, you can come here from somewhere else and you may not like it, but we're going to brainwash the crap out of
Oh
your
hell
kids.
yeah! You take Texas history not once but twice in Texas schools.
That's
So
okay.
you get it. So yeah, I think the Elon Musk story. I'll be really interested to see 2 days from now what happens between now and Friday. Again, like you said, we'll be live on Friday, so we'll be able to see in real time what actually happens. But I still don't have a lot of faith that this is going to happen. There's all kinds of things. I mean, the employees as a whole could sue between now and then.
I don't know how they could, because all of their contracts, especially in California, probably have some sort of protection for when your company gets acquired, here are your rights. And I doubt that that's a possibility. But Elon Musk, on the other hand, has been known to speak pretty loosely when it comes to legal matters. Like he will just openly say stuff. But I just wanted to hold on one second. Before we move on to the next story, I just want to very quickly talk about who all is going to end up owning this thing when it's all said and done. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So Elon Musk, so this is the so $13 billion in debt.
Mhm.
So it's Morgan Stanley comes in at 3.5 billies.
Whew.
B of A 2.7, Barclays another 2.7. Who's MUFG? I don't even know who that is.
It's just a financial investment.
Firm.
It's a fund, right? It's a fund.
Okay. So okay. And then there's another PNB Paribas comes in at 650 million.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think that the largest investment bank in Japan, Museo, another 475, and Societe Generale, which I assume I said it with a like Spanish accent, but it's probably French. So screw those people.
But look, these people are coming in, and this is money he's borrowing.
Correct.
These aren't people coming in like an investor and going, "Hey,
Correct.
I'm going to
Well,
get X number of," you know what I mean? Whatever.
No, I still think he's probably getting his billionaire buddies to give him money. I'm sure.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm just
Yeah.
saying this list of banks that he's
Right.
now leveraging to come in and finish this up, if it is
Correct.
what he wants to do, these are people
Yeah.
giving him loans. These
Yeah, of
aren't
course.
these aren't the other people, right?
No,
These
yeah.
banks aren't. They're going to get their money back and their interest back. They have no desire to own a piece of right
No.
a private company being Twitter.
But listen, Dell did. Michael Dell, our good friend,
Mhm.
did the exact same thing. He had to go to banks and he had to go to his billionaire buddies,
Yep.
and that was the case. That was how he ended up buying Dell back. So I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to result in a close. And here's the thing: you and I have been skeptical of this thing closing from the very beginning.
Yep.
We predicted this would never happen. And now that there's this deadline, or there has been this deadline, but he has banks lined up, I get the distinct impression that this thing's going the distance now.
With this 2-day clock, I think we're close. I think I've gone from like that 60 to 70%, right, to
Yeah.
maybe 80 or 90. I
Right.
still think there's a lot of things that can happen between now and Friday. It's not like if he
Right.
doesn't close on Friday, they're going to be in court on Monday. It would be another
Right.
week or so, right? Which leaves yet another week for different things to
For-
happen, and
Right.
right. So we'll see. I just don't. I still think he had never had any real intention of purchasing Twitter. He just backed himself in the corner with his mouth, which is what happens sometimes.
Yeah, and we have a saying in Texas, your mouth wrote a check that your ass can't cash. And
Yeah.
guess what? I think his ass is cashing some checks now.
That is one
That's
of
all I'm
my
saying.
favorite sayings of my parents right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's unbelievably true, and that actually brings us up to a follow up story of speaking of things that your mouth checks that your mouth make.
Yeah.
Um, we'll come back to the rent story, but the Yay,
Yay. Yeah.
Mr. Yay,
Mr.
your buddy
Yeah,
Yay.
you're always so polite calling him Mr. Ye.
Mi-
I was texting him the other day, and he said, "You don't have to call me Mr. Ye."
I call
You just
everybody Mister if I don't know you. All right,
yeah.
but Mr.
Which
Ye lost his billionaire status
oh
from because he lost his Adidas deal, and
yeah
as we established last week, that was the bulk of his quote unquote billionaire status.
yeah. So I'm just gonna make some comments again, and here's what I'm gonna say. I find is what he said ridiculous. Some of the word like what he said was not only incorrect, it's ridiculous, and whatever he said about that specific group of people, um, could be applied to Indian people in tech or banking. And you can say Indians have taken. I'm just saying it is true though. If you sit and look, you go, Microsoft, Twitter until Friday, Google,
These are
Google
all
Cloud.
opinions of
No,
Danny,
hold
not
on. I'm
Market Fire Pod or
no,
the
no,
big
no.
man.
I'm not saying there's a conspiracy or anything. I'm just saying if you look at the people who make up, hey, by the way, just throwing this out there, score one for the Indians. We now run the United Kingdom. You subjugated us, up yours, right back at you. We freaking did it. My
He's not
Ummachie, my
Indian.
grandmother,
He's a
huh?
British man
Yeah,
that
born and raised in
happens
the
to
United
be
Kingdom,
from
Indian
India,
descent. No,
Indian
his
descent.
parents
So
are
that's what I'm
Indian descent.
saying.
Yeah,
But he happens to be from Indian descent. But he is a
correct.
British man. He is not
Correct.
like they didn't hire an Indian to come
No,
be
they
the
didn't.
UK Prime Minister.
No, everything you're saying is correct. I'm just saying they stole my great grandmother's jewelry and we're getting it back now. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
No,
But here, I'll just make this. This is a point to me that I think is important to make.
okay.
What he said was wrong. What he said was incorrect. What he said was despicable. But he said, if I say this, this group of people is going to take away all my stuff. And then everyone's like, what you're saying is ridiculous. Also, we're taking away all your stuff. Kind of proves him to a group of people who would otherwise not have the nuance to be like, well, he didn't lose it because of you know what I'm saying? It kind of proves what he was saying correct. It's not correct, but I'm saying a person could look at that and go, yeah, if you say this stuff, they're going to take away all your stuff. And then your buddy goes, no, they're not. That's a dumb conspiracy theory. And then you say it, and then you don't have a bank account anymore.
Well, the bank he was banking with kicked him off. All
Yeah,
these different projects he was tied to have kicked him off.
right.
His what's been his representative forever,
Yeah,
his
CAA.
agent, yeah, you know
Yeah,
what I mean,
his agents.
quit on him, right?
Yep.
And now after, of course, going on television and say, hey, I can say what I want and they won't fire me. Which I
Right.
told Danny this yesterday when the story actually came out that he lost his billionaire status.
Yeah.
That I did not know at the time we were talking about it last week that Adidas was a German company.
Yep.
Like I didn't know that.
So
So to
yeah,
go,
so the reason why Adidas and Puma were founded by brothers. The original company was the what became Puma,
Mhm.
and what ended up happening was um, the one of the brothers accused the other brother of being a part of a particular political party, the German National Social Workers Party of in Germany
Okay,
around a
yes,
around a particular tense time in that country's history.
sure.
So one accused the other of being a member of that party, and they ended up splitting over that accusation. I don't recall which one was which, and I don't know if that piece of history is public knowledge. But
But being a
yeah,
German company, you are obviously sensitive to
of
the
course,
historical relevance, right?
yeah. And the other thing to say too is their original iteration of that company did sponsor an American athlete, an American Olympic athlete was their first rise to relevance, who was a Black American athlete in the Olympics. So I'm going to go with throughout history, maybe maybe that wasn't such a big deal for them, but
We live in 2022, though. Again,
yeah,
reality. We can all think,
right,
because there is a part of me that goes, look, Mr. Ye can be an idiot. He has the freedom
yeah,
to be an idiot and say whatever
correct,
idiotic things he wants to say. And
right,
should business use that against him? Well, I also believe in the freedom of those businesses to do what they want with their
right,
money, right?
correct,
So it's one of those situations where if we lived in a perfect world, he could say whatever he wanted to say, and every business would
right.
just keep going about their business. But we don't live in that world. We live
No,
currently in reality of 2022, and
right.
even though Mr. Ye and his footwear line account for
No,
$2 billion in sales a year, right?
yeah. Adidas says they expect, but because of releasing him from his agreement, that they lost. I think their stock went down by 4% yesterday
Mm-hmm.
because of this, and they expect to lose $250 million just to the end of this year. Just
Yeah.
this year. That's there's only like 2 months left in the year. That's how much Ye's business means to Adidas. Now, here's what I'm going to say, and here's another conspiracy theory that I have. I think Ye believed all this stuff. I actually do. I think he's a person who
You
is
think he
perhaps
believes what he's currently saying?
correct.
Okay.
And I believe in free speech. I disagree with him wholeheartedly. He also went on one of my favorite podcasts that I never listened to because I don't have that kind of time or energy. Lex Friedman, who you can presume is of Jewish descent, and
Okay.
basically started saying the same stuff to his face. He's a fellow
Really?
Austinite. Yeah, and Lex is a soft, kind, and gentle soul, and he's authentically that person.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also a nerd, a certified nerd. He works in AI tech and was working at Boston University, and or I don't know. He's a genius, right?
Okay.
But he's also one of those geniuses that you go. It's one of those like that kid in school is really nice, and then somebody bullies him, and you go, hold on a second.
Ah,
You pick,
yes.
you pick on somebody your own size.
Sure.
I'm not saying he's an idiot or something or stupid or like he's incapable of defending
I
himself.
get what you're saying.
I'm just saying you got to throw around whatever. But when you talk to anyway, what I was getting at though is I believe Mr. West is saying stuff that he believes that he's saying the quiet part out loud because he just got out of all of his contracts without having to pay for it. He got out of all of his contracts for free.
You know, I,
So if
Danny loves these
so
conspiracy theories.
no, but let me just add this. You said that he represents about $2 billion to Adidas in value.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking to himself, "I'm going to lose half my business by taking it by taking it out of Adidas's hands. It's going to go and it's going to cut in half. But I'm not splitting it with them anymore. So now I'm going to get to keep $1 billion a year, which I guarantee you he's not keeping right now, because Adidas owns all of his designs. Adidas owns all of his stuff.
I love your theory. I
Thank you.
do. I love your theory because it is actually like good conspiracy theories. There's little dabs of what can be truth in there, right? So I love your theory.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the problem. That theory relies on Kanye West, Mr. Ye,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
being intelligent and being a person that came up with that scheme,
So I'm
right?
not saying Mr. Ye isn't intelligent. I do believe he's intelligent. I believe he's a creative genius. I just believe that you have sometimes when you have genius, you also get cuckoo time. Like those go hand in hand a lot of times, right?
The Vincent Van Gogh and the
Yeah,
yeah,
like
okay.
these people when you get to a certain level of intelligence, um, you leave the realm of what's normal and what's like you leave that world.
He has
Okay.
definitely left that world, but to
And
even
by
be
the
in
way,
here long enough to develop that plan, I
right.
don't think he can. I don't think his feet are that securely on the ground.
Yeah. And also just to throw this in there, he's also trying to start his own city. So that's cool. Remember I sent you
Not
that
only his
article?
own city, but his own personally branded city.
Yeah.
Like he wants everything in the town to be Yay
Right. Yay,
All
Brandon.
in, yay,
Right.
like everything personally branded him. That he's his cheese done slid off his cracker. Okay,
That's right.
all
There you
right,
go.
he's no, it's just not going to happen. I wish him the best. And oh, by the way, just because he's not a billionaire anymore, he's still worth about $400 million a year. So it's not
Right.
like he's going to the poverty house tomorrow. You're not going to see
No,
him at
he's not going
HEB
back
or
to
the
the
Walmart.
he's not going back to the south side of Chicago.
Yeah,
He's going to stay at his massive mansion in Calabasas. He's going to be just fine. He owns 3/4 of Wyoming or something like that. Like it's
this
him and
affects
Bill
nothing.
Gates.
His
Right.
life.
Yes. So Kanye West, this is from Rolling Stone, um, wants to build his own mini city called the Yako system or the Yiko system. Now, I love it. I love it. I love it. And I bet you
I
it's
love
going
this
to
for
run
him.
off of. I really do love this for him. Have we just turned into a girl gossip podcast because of that one phrase? Yes, we have.
Yes.
Um,
But
I bet you.
it so speaks to this event. Like,
Yes.
it really does. I get the gossip. You're right. But it's perfect for the. I love this for
Yeah.
him because I would love if he even starts this, Danny. You and I
Right.
are going to chronicle the steps of
Of course.
Ye Nation, right? The
Yeah.
ecosystem.
We're going to chronicle the steps of Yako System, Wyoming, and that runs off of Dogecoin. You know
Absolutely.
it's running off of Dogecoin. He's going to fork Dogecoin into Yogecoin, YOG, Yogecoin.
Uh huh.
And let me tell you something. That's the only way in the future you're going to be able to buy the new Yeezys is with Yogecoin.
In the ecosystem.
And you have to go to the Yako system to
you
even
have
buy
to go
it.
to the ecosystem to buy it. You and I will have a booth, a table right outside the gates.
And let me tell you something. What we have just described here is going to be the only business plan that Ye has ever put together. Will be whatever nonsense we just defecated out of our mouths just in the last 2 minutes.
He's listening right now and writing it down.
He's just like, hey, yo, man, I could just, because he owns, like, I think like 10,000 acres of Wyoming. And hey, I'm just saying right now, his followers, like the people who are his customers, I'm going to say customers, his followers makes it sound like he's running a cult. His customers have a loyalty. And, you know, like there's a whole other algorithm of Twitter referred to as Black Twitter. And occasionally I like to jump into Black Twitter and just see what's going on in that part of the world. And Black Twitter was like, y'all supported him after he said slavery was a choice and you kept buying Yeezys. So, like, what are you angry at? Like,
that is also a valid point. When you talk to certain people, like, is anybody surprised that he did this or said this?
no, I'm not.
No.
So that's the thing is like, I'm not surprised that he believes, and there's people circulating pictures of him with a particular minister of a particular faith who has said exactly the same kind of things he's saying, which the Black community has traditionally, they haven't done any, they haven't publicly eschewed this individual for saying that stuff, right?
Well, again,
And
but
that
it goes
particular
back to
person-
what I've always told you in business and on this
Right.
podcast. You can think whatever you want to think in your head. It does not mean it needs to come out of your dumb, stupid mouth. He
Correct.
can believe all of this. And
Right.
I have no doubt that maybe he does. But you
Correct.
have to be intelligent enough to not let it fall out your mouth.
Right. You know, because I was with a cousin of mine who's married to a person of a different ethnicity, and I made a crack about that person because that person's an attorney for a big company,
Mhm.
and they may or may not sell chemicals. And I said, you know, something, something, something. In your free time, you're out poisoning a water table. I was making a joke. He was like, oh, is that because I work for such and such company? I was like, no. Or no. He said, is that because I'm of this ethnicity? I was like, no, it's because of who you work for. What are you talking about? I was like, is that a new stereotype I need to know about your people?
Because if it
Are
is,
you
I need to
point?
know that right now so that I can start
Yeah,
using it tomorrow.
I know, because this whole time I hadn't thought of that. So,
That is amazing. All right, Danny, what's up next?
oh, one of the library ladies just told me that I'm
Ooh.
talking too loud. I kind of want to open the door and be like, you realize there's nobody in here and there's six of you on staff, right?
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Danny, what's up? What's
So we
next?
got we got a couple of real estate stories for you now. The first one is rent is going to remain ridiculous.
Well, no duh.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
here, look. Over the pandemic, even when uh, housing costs were on the rise, right? That the cost of housing went
Right.
on the rise and went crazy at every metropolitan major area across the nation, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Everywhere. All right.
Right.
Which is crazy because even it went up even in places where people were leaving, like California and Florida, and you know what I mean, stuff like this. But anyway, so as it was going through, what people didn't understand, and I tried to get people to understand during that process, is during that time when you had Zillow and you had Open Door and you had all these different what they called iBuyer, right?
All
I'll
of
give
whom went out of
you
business,
I'll
basically.
they've all gone out of business at this point except for Open Door.
Right. Right.
But and what's the red one? Red Door or something like that. Anyway, point is they've all gone out of business because they were losing their shirts. Here's
Redfin. I think you mean
Redfin.
Redfin, right? Yeah.
So Redfin's still around. So, but the point is they were all backed by investors that essentially Red Rock, all of these, they wanted the property. They had no
Right.
intention of selling your property.
I
They
think you mean
wanted
BlackRock, but yeah.
BlackRock, but
Blackstone.
yes, I'm
All of
sorry,
them were buying
Blackstone,
it.
BlackRock,
Yeah.
all of them were buying these properties and buying for them cash, and they didn't care if they were overpaying because they were being allowed to accumulate single family properties at an alarming rate with no intention of ever selling them.
Right.
Right?
Their intention was just to rent them forever. Rent them
Correct.
out forever.
So
Yeah.
now you flip on the other side of this and you have inflated prices where rents are also being inflated because they are not getting rid of the properties they acquired. So
Right.
instead of it being turned over in the market, which is what it normally is on any given day, right?
Okay.
90% of things bought and sold are to an individual, right?
Right.
That rotation didn't happen for 2.5 years. The majority of
Correct.
what was being bought on any given day was being bought by investors,
Right.
right? By big
Yeah.
investors, big time investors.
So what ended up happening, what I do find interesting is the most, and this is what I find funny about this is I always thought San Francisco was the most expensive city in the country to rent in. Apparently, it is actually still New York City, which it blows my mind that that's the case. The reason it blows my mind is I just thought like that. I always, of course, New York's expensive. I just figured it was in the top 10 and that San Francisco was going to be always way more expensive. But they even got passed up by $40 a month. Boston is now the most. Listen, I
Wow.
don't know anybody who's moving to Boston.
No,
I
I,
know a handful of people from Boston,
right.
none of whom live in Boston.
I know a lot of
None of
people from
whom,
Boston. Dallas,
and
there's
I
a
don't,
whole community of people from Boston and Dallas.
right. But
Um,
yeah,
but
with the stupid hats with the B on it,
yes,
talking
yes,
like idiots. Like, hey,
yes.
we're gonna watch the Celtics. Nobody watches the. Nobody likes the Celtics, right?
Right. They're all New England Patriots fans. They're all, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, Red Sox fans. But I know a bunch of people from Boston, but I don't know anybody that lives in Boston. Like no
That's the.
one.
So the funny thing is, I know so many people from Boston that do not live there and
Hmm.
refuse to go. Like I also, and their parents don't live there. So like people my age, where it's like, yeah, I'm from Boston. It's like, oh, you're going back for Christmas to visit your family. No, my family doesn't live there. They live in Florida,
No,
like
no,
normal
I
people.
ain't going back to Boston.
Yeah,
No.
they like normal people. Their parents have moved to Florida, so they're going.
Right.
So so here are the most expensive cities to rent in America right now. New York City's number one.
Hmm.
Good for you guys. Stupid place to live, more rats than people, and your rent's expensive.
Well, and that's always been a cliche, right? That I mean, a shoebox, right,
Yeah.
for thousands of dollars a month in rent,
There's
right?
on TikTok, if you go on TikTok and if you go on Instagram Reels, there's a guy who walks around New York City saying, how much do you pay for an apartment in New York City? And then someone's like, I pay $1,300 a month, and they're like, wow, that's so cheap. And that person who's 5'10" can push themselves hands up against the wall
Yes.
and get their yeah.
Yeah.
And they share a bathroom, so it's a dorm. They're paying
Right.
$1,100 a month
One
for a
hundred
dorm.
percent. Not only a
Um,
dorm, but a dorm that's 100 years old.
Correct. And then San Francisco's number 3, San Jose, California, right
Okay, no,
outside
no,
of
no.
San
Back
Francisco.
up. San Francisco. And if you've been to San Francisco in the last 3 years, like I have, it is
Okay.
a garbage city. There was a
I
time
haven't
and a
been in 10
place that
years.
San Francisco was a beautiful city, right?
Yeah.
Now, absolutely horrifying to drive around. I'm just telling you now, it
Yeah.
is not in me from a guy that's from Texas and driven all over Texas, right?
Right. Yeah.
Including hills and even
Yeah.
in West Texas, the mountainous and that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I cannot drive in San Francisco. It
Stresses
is
you
it
out.
is horrifying because if you're standing at one stop sign and the other stop sign that's across the street, you can't see the street because it falls
Yeah.
off like this, and
Yeah.
I'm just supposed to drive straight to that street hoping that it exists. It is
Yeah.
not in me. However, but if you've been to San Francisco in the last 3 or 4 years, you know that the homeless population of San Francisco has gotten so out of hand. There is literally crap on the streets everywhere. There are homeless people,
Yeah.
not just homeless people, but crazy homeless people
Yeah.
everywhere.
Some of my favorite videos to watch on YouTube when I'm having a rough day is videos of people who are in San Francisco and they're talking about they're just, you know, you know who I mean. It's a
Yes.
progressive white Karen woman, and there's a guy, and he might be pleasuring himself with. This is an actual video that it was blurred out, so you can't really see anything.
Right, I get it.
But he may or not have inserted something somewhere.
Sure.
It might be the handle of a bicycle. So I got a lot of questions. That part of my body is a one-way street, but that's neither here nor there. No
Whatever.
judgments. But you're out in a public street, and the lady's like, "Hey, man, you're next to a park. Could you not do that in front of the kids?" Very polite.
Sure.
And the guy just yells at her, and I go, "There's something about you, like you supported stupid stuff. You played a stupid game. You won stupid prizes, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to tell you, I wish that didn't happen to you, but you kind of deserve it." And there was a guy who's an immigrant from Africa who said, "The only place I've walked around and seen this much human feces on the ground is San Francisco, California, in the United States." And he's like, "I'm from Africa. We don't have toilets. In my village, we don't have toilets. But I've seen human feces on the ground in San Francisco."
So that's the part that is surprising to me, that it's the number 3 most expensive with
Yes.
that kind of environment. And I'm not
Right.
talking about like for example, San Diego has some
Yeah.
really rough parts of San Diego,
Correct.
but 2 streets over, absolutely gorgeous, right? And
Right.
it's just but that's all of San Francisco right now and has been for the last several years, and they don't have a plan to fix it, right? So how
No.
can that be one of the most expensive,
Expensive.
sought after places to
Right.
live?
Right. And the other thing too is that I find funny is maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Peter Thiel wrote this long public letter saying San Francisco's turned into a cesspool and blah blah blah. So I'm moving out of San Francisco. And you expect him to go, "I'm moving to Florida, I'm moving to Austin, I'm moving to Miami." He goes, "I'm moving to Los Angeles." What?
They invented it, brother. They invented
Yeah.
it. San Francisco
Yeah.
imported it. Los Angeles.
Correct.
All right.
So
So,
then
who else is on the list?
So number 4, we left off with San Jose, California.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one. This surprised me, but it doesn't surprise me. Miami. Okay,
Mm,
because the reason rent is expensive in Miami is not because of Floridians. It's because of New Yorkers, San Franciscans, Angelinos, Chicagoans. All of these people who are like, "I'm going to move to Florida," and then they get hit with one hurricane, and they're like, "I'm going to leave out of Florida."
now,
And
does this rent take into account short-term rentals? Are they
I don't
lumping
think so.
short-term rentals in
No, I
with
don't think so.
long-term?
I think it's just long term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because even in a place like Florida, Miami, you have a lot of people have their second homes, but
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean that they rent them out at all. Does that,
Right.
you know what I mean? So if it accounted for that, that kind of would make sense to me. Even though
Correct,
I
yeah.
wouldn't own a house anywhere in Florida, that's a no from me as an investor.
Right.
But I know a
Even
lot
though
of people that do.
Even though Florida's laws are pro landlord or housing
Yes,
provider,
of
which is
course.
the preferred term now. Dude, squatters' rights in Texas kick in at 31 days, if I'm correct.
Yeah, but they're not in anywhere near squatters' rights in any most other states.
That's fine. But in Florida, it takes 7 years. You have to
There
invade
you go.
somebody's, you have to live in somebody's trailer for 7 years before the state says you have any right
It's,
to maybe be there.
yeah,
Like
but your
you
house
have
is
to
in
be,
Florida, and yeah, I mean where your homeowner's insurance can be more expensive than your mortgage. That's if you can get it right. Like,
right. Like, but unless you live in Pensacola, next to the Florida Georgia line.
yeah. So anyway, so who else is on
No.
the list? We'll round out the top 10.
So of course, San Diego comes in after Miami. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Los Angeles makes a lot of sense to me. I'm surprised it's not number 4
Mm-hmm.
behind San Francisco or San Jose. Washington D.C. I don't know anybody that actually lives there. I like,
We went this past summer. Jen
which
and
is
I
why,
took the boys for 3 weeks.
you know,
To do all the Washington D.C. stuff that you do,
right,
and gorgeous, by the way. The what is not the state, but the
District of
District
Columbia.
of
Yeah,
Washington D.C. is gorgeous,
yeah,
well kept. They spent a lot of money keeping
of course,
monuments clean and
right,
everything gorgeous. Um,
yeah,
but there
but
are a crap ton of people that and they walk
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. I know. Let me make something very clear. I moved to Texas. I had no problem surviving the humidity and the heat. I don't care. When people come there and complain, I don't get it. What's wrong with you? I went to Washington D.C. once in my life in July. I have not experienced terror of that nature. The humidity, you're just soaking wet, and then you're walking everywhere, and then everything is $18 million. I
Right.
remember we walked into a Burger King that had 2 floors.
Hmm.
A thing of chicken nuggets was $20 or something.
Yeah, it's crazy expensive.
And the only reason we sat there and everybody bought like a little thing was because it was the only place that we could find air conditioning.
That is also true. That is also
Because
true. Most of the
all,
places downtown, like close to the Capitol and stuff like that, don't have air conditioning because they're as old as the Capitol is, right? Or whatever.
yeah,
But the entire district, all the
that
houses are that way too. You know what I
yeah, that's
mean?
one thing I noticed when I was out there in January of 2021. On the 6th, there was no AC anywhere, but it was January, so it was fine. I'm kidding. I'm
Danny was
kidding.
not there. No,
I was
Danny.
not.
Nor was
I had
I.
nothing.
I have nothing to
Yeah,
do with what Danny says. Is Danny's responsible for, not Market Fire Pod, not the
yeah,
big
yeah.
man. Nada.
Right. I'm joking. Obviously, I would not book it. I don't go. It doesn't matter what the subject is politically. I ain't protesting. I
Well,
don't got
Danny
that kind of
doesn't care
time.
enough to leave his house for pretty much anything except for food,
That's not
the
okay.
the love of a
Yeah.
particular female, or you know what I mean. Like,
Particular brand of female.
if
Yeah.
it's not food or mating, Danny's out. Like Danny's out.
That is not true. I go see my chiropractor every once in a while. I leave the house to do this podcast. I leave this house to do my other podcast.
There you go. There you go. Anyway.
Yeah, and then Oakland, California. By the way, I don't know anybody who I don't get
Mm-hmm.
Oakland. I don't understand why anybody
Mm.
would live there. It's a weird place to choose to live. I
Paying a
don't
lot
get
of
it.
money to do it. See, that's the part that I can never get over with any of these lists I ever see,
Right.
is who's paying top 10 in the country to
Right.
live there. People, listen to me, okay? I want you to understand something. You can pack your shit at any time
Right.
and get out of Dodge, as they say,
Right.
okay?
Yeah. The
Pack
only
your
thing I
shit.
yeah, the only thing I will tell you is companies like U-Haul, Ryder, all of them, going from California to New York, like if you're going one way
Hmm.
to Texas or Florida, the rates are outrageous.
Then sell your shit. Bring
Right.
all that can fit in your car,
Yeah.
right? Sell your crap, because guess what? You can go to a thrift store in any city and
Yeah.
find more
And
crap. Okay?
correct.
So pack what you need your keepsakes and what you need, your clothes, and get out of Dodge. You do not have to stay in these overpriced places.
And something else I just want to add here too is I was listening to a Bigger Pockets podcast, which is about real estate investing, and one of the it was about a guy who runs these massive storage facilities. He's an investor in storage units, and he goes, the average storage customer that we have spends they will spend with us $2,000 to $4,000 to store roughly $200 worth of stuff, and he says doesn't matter. We can't convince anybody. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I'm not. And he's like, it's always people of lower economic status who are doing this. It's never people who are like, oh, I'm storing gold bars at
Of course
the
not.
yeah. So, because I remember I went to one of my buddy's storage places. I was like, dude, you have like an 8-year-old mattress. Like, what do you like? Get rid of the mattress. Who cares? Just get rid of it. Like, you don't. You can just go buy a new mattress when it's a mattress. So just buy a new one. Like, why are you
Exactly.
keeping an old mattress? Like, I don't. So like,
I don't get it. It's well, and I do. It's fear, right? It's fear of moving to a new place, getting a new job, finding a new. But again, we live in 2022. If you do any kind of tech job, I deal with people every day. I have realtors that deal with people every day that are moving back home to places because
right,
their companies and their jobs have gone full remote. So they're
right,
like, why am I living blah 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 when I can live at blah blah blah, right?
right,
You know what I'm saying? And that kind of stuff. Just pack your shit and go to somewhere that's cheaper. There are
right,
jobs there. There are jobs all over. Just
right.
and this is a
Hey,
perfect time to do it. Remote
right.
work is on.
Listen. I'm moving right now to an area of Texas that 10 years ago would be considered more or less rural. Is that fair? Like where?
Absolute 100%.
Okay, $40 a month for gigabit internet from Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say the city, but I'm just saying like
Yeah.
10 years ago, this is a rural place where you're gonna have to throw a satellite outside
Right.
to barely get enough connection to get a picture to load.
Right.
But they got gigabit Ethernet
Mm-hmm.
for $40 a month with
Yep.
a 2-year rate lock. I mean,
Exactly.
and by the way, the reason my family is moving here is because like, you know, everybody can work from home.
Right.
So,
If you're unhappy, just get out of Dodge.
so
Just
like one of one of my parents was gonna retire, but then they told their job that they were leaving, and their job's like, you don't have to retire if you don't want to. We need to keep you. They're like, there's maybe 2 people in the country that can do this job, so we need you to stay. And my parent was like, yeah, fine, of course. Actually, keep work because they're like, the thing that bothered a lot of people, I'll say my parents in particular about going to work, what it turns out it wasn't their job that they hated, right? It was the getting up early in the morning.
mm-hmm.
I got to get dressed. Then I got to sit in the car for 45 minutes to an hour. Then I got to park in a parking ramp. And I got to walk by, inevitably in downtown Minneapolis, you're walking by a mentally unwell person
Mm-hmm.
who is either going to take drugs later today, is currently taking drugs, or is withdrawing from drugs. There's only 3 options I've ever seen in Minneapolis. Um, and then you have to do it all over again. And I think one of my mom or dad sat down and calculated. It's like I've spent the equivalent of 1 year of my life doing this nonsense,
Mm-hmm.
and I can just sit at home and do it. And it's like I'm getting as much as I need to get done. And
The
this,
commute to me, and again, this makes me, Danny thinks makes me a socialist, but I'm sorry. If you get paid hourly, as far as I'm concerned, they should pay you to commute to work. I'm sorry. Sitting in traffic, an 8 hour workday,
right, it's
you're
10
not working.
hours.
It's 10 hours easy,
Yeah,
especially in a place like Austin or Dallas or you know what I mean. These bigger
right.
cities, your commute is easily sitting in traffic 30 to an hour one way. So it's a
Hey,
10 hour workday. So
I know somebody who moved from New Jersey to Dallas because they are the DFW area,
hmm
and they said not just I would like the amount of time they would spend in the car driving into the city to go to work,
hmm
and then the amount of time or the amount of money they would spend not in gas, in tolls and in
hmm
parking, like it, and they can work from home, I presume, or like they went and found a house that was a 10-minute commute. Like that was his rule. Like I don't know if that was his rule. I'm assuming 10 minutes away from his office. I get in the car and I'm there in 10 minutes. Probably doesn't pay any toll roads. And even if you do pay tolls, paying a Texas toll is like 40 cents every time you pass
Of
through,
course. Yeah.
versus a New York toll could be 10 to 20 bucks every time you bang it.
Hmm.
So like I know people who live out there who are like, no, our whole family will get in the car to go from Staten Island to go to wherever we want for groceries because it's 30 bucks every time.
So the
So
official opinion of Market Fire Podcast is two
yes,
things. If you're paying
right.
high rent in one of these top 10 cities, pack your shit and get out.
Also, that's actually not the
And
official.
two, get a
Yeah,
job where you can work remote and
yeah.
go wherever you want to be.
So I'm just saying though, let's just qualify what you just said. That is actually not an opinion of the Market Fire podcast. Here is the official opinion. If you're paying too much in rent, it's your own dang fault. Don't come over here and start screwing up our economy. Okay. Don't start. Texas is full. We got no room for you. Okay. Don't. And here's the other thing. If you move to Texas, they're going to make you show your ID to vote. You're not just allowed to come in and vote. You got to register and show your ID. That's racism. So if you move here, it's probably because you're a racist. I'm just saying that.
No,
Okay.
stop it, Danny. Everybody's welcome in Texas. It's the way we
That's not
treat
true.
people. Okay,
No.
that's just Danny's feelings. All right.
No, me and every other, and I wouldn't use the word right winger, but me and every other person who doesn't like lefties, we're moving in and we're not letting the rest of you come here. And the local Texans who are like, we used to be a blue state. You better shut your mouth. All right.
Yeah, there was Ann Richards and
Yeah, no.
all the other
We're
people
turning-
before her.
We're turning this into a libertarian paradise, and you're gonna shut your mouth and you're gonna love it. Because unlike your California friends that are moving here, we like your brisket. We like your
Mhm.
trucks. Okay. We like your other accoutrements of Texas living. Okay. We like
Right.
that stuff. So,
Yeah.
anyways, let's move on to this next story of another most ridiculous thing in real estate. A it's in the Hamptons, so I appreciate this a lot. It's a $150 million home, the most expensive home ever to be sold in the Hamptons, has been on and off the market since 2016. So how long is that? 5 years, 6 years?
Well, 6 years, yes. So
Yeah. And it's called, and here's the thing I love about these massive properties. They get branding now. Remember
course.
we did a story in February, I think, of the one
yes,
Los Angeles.
the one that it's going to cost more to buy, renovate than it is to buy. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it took 10 years to build it, so they're gonna have to it's like when they were talking about in 2001 in September after September 11th of like how like the guy who washed the windows of the Twin Towers, here's what he did. He would just start at the bottom, he would start at the top, go to the bottom, and then by the time he got to the bottom, he just had to start over again. Like because there's just that many windows.
Right.
So it's like he had to, like with any of these houses. But what I like about this particular one is you're going to buy Ladune.
Ladune.
Ladune. This has to end.
We're probably pronouncing it wrong. It's probably like Ladune or
whatever. You cannot brand houses. They're just houses.
No, you can. Obviously, you can. I mean, I don't get it, but you can.
No, hold on. I hate it though. I'm just saying I hate it. Please stop this madness. It's a house. So here's what I will say. The only exception to this rule is a ranch. You're allowed to name a ranch. That is Texas history. We've been doing it for hundreds of years. So naming ranches is perfectly fine. And they are appropriating, when people brand a home, they are appropriating Texas culture. Okay?
Stop it. You can appropriate Texas culture. None of us Texans give a crap. Okay? We don't care. Look, it's a $150,000 house in the Hamptons, right? It's there's two houses on it. One of them was built over 100 years ago. The other one was built 20 years ago-ish, right? It's 4 acres in the Hamptons. Here's the thing about all of these the $150 million houses and these that everybody goes, well, this house is, $150 million, $100 million, $50 million, or whatever. Look, these are all high-end products, right? And then on any given day, they're very cyclical, meaning people buy these houses, are typically buying these houses for not namesake, but for show, right? I want to buy a house in the Hamptons. I'm a multi-billionaire. I'm Jeff Bezos. I'm Elon Musk.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm buying a house in the Hamptons, and I'm buying the most expensive one there. That's why somebody buys a $150 million house. Not because, hey, I want to move to the Hamptons, and what house fits my purposes? Oh, the most expensive $150 million one. That's the one. No, the person that buys this house and most of these big houses like this aren't moving in to live in them 12 months out of the year. They're moving because they want a house in the Hamptons, and this is the one that's the nicest or available, right?
Yeah. And one of my favorite comedians, Tim Dillon, bought a house in the Hamptons, and I love that for him. I really do. I love that he's the type of comedian he like. The reason he resonates, and if there was ever somebody in media that represented me, it's not Aziz Ansari, right? It's it's Tim Dillon, right? He's a chubby guy, but he likes real estate.
He's irreverent.
The other thing I like is his merchandise brand is called The Fake Business, and on his podcast, one of the most famous clips, he calls up a real estate agent and pretends to be interested in a piece of commercial property as a real estate agent.
Of course he does. You know what I mean? Of course he does.
So that's why I like that dude a lot. But
but normal people don't buy these houses, right?
No.
These are people with exorbitant amounts of money, and they buy them for stature. They buy them for...
It's a status symbol.
It's a status symbol, but it's also... people like that, Elon Musk and whatever, they buy them for convenience, right?
Well, Elon's a bad example because he doesn't own a house technically, but I know what you mean. It's billionaires that usually buy.
Yeah, but billionaires, they buy these multi-million-dollar mansions because of convenience as well. They want to live in Austin, or they're going to be in Austin part of the year for business. They don't want their living to diminish no matter where they have to be. So if I'm going to be in the Hamptons, I want to own a home in the Hamptons. If I'm going to be in Austin, I want to own a home in Austin that keeps my level of living the same.
Right. I was reading a Reddit thread where a guy's like, "What's the weirdest thing that like poor people would never know about rich people?" And he's like, one of the answers was, "I used to be someone's assistant for a multi-millionaire. I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds true." Like he's like, "We have a team of house staff, and it's literally like we split the team in two, and they're going from." They're going from their LA house to their Austin house, and there's a advanced team. So it's literally like the president of the United States. The advanced team gets down there, they set everything up, they make sure all of their favorite clothing items, all of their pictures are there, and it's like there was a basketball player who talked about how Prince rented his house, and he went over there when Prince was renting the house, Prince the artist, and he's like he had changed the color. He put up a bunch of statues like in the ground, lion statues.
Yep.
And he goes, a year later, I move back to the other team and I go back to the house, and it's exactly like the way when I gave it to him. Like they changed everything back. And this is in the 90s. So it's not like you can just take a digital camera or take your phone and take pictures.
No, somebody's in charge of it. That's their job.
Somebody's making $150,000 a year working for a billionaire, which is when people are like, billionaires don't create jobs. Just their domestic staff is creating 100 jobs. Just their domestic staff.
And it's not even, look, a lot of these people, especially at these bigger properties like this, like obviously there's a lawn maintenance that is just like the window washer you were talking about. There's somebody that their entire business is taking care of this lawn. Right? Because it's 4 acres, bushes, hedges, right? All the things that go into keeping the lawn manicured or whatever. Somebody's getting paid just for this job because it takes that much, right? Daily. It takes daily, like a groundskeeper on a golf course, right?
Correct.
And so this person, so a lot of them a lot of these billionaires don't even have transition staff. They have staff at every property. I learned this a couple of years ago. Me and a buddy of mine went to Florida, which if you don't, Jacksonville, if you don't know, if you are ever interested in yachts, Jacksonville and Miami actually host the biggest yacht annual yachting event in the
Yeah.
world, right? And we were out there because he was interested in looking at yachts. And what I didn't realize about owning a yacht, and that in itself is an insane thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're talking even low end yachts, like the smaller, what's considered yachts, you're
Sure.
talking ballpark used, like resale market, $20 million, right? That's on the bottom. That's on the
No
bottom,
thanks.
right? Now, so, but even once you buy the yacht, obviously it has to sit somewhere, and you are required to pay a staff
Yeah.
to maintain that yacht, right?
Right.
So you have a yacht staff that you pay whether you're on the yacht or not, so
Right.
that when you are ready and go, okay, hey, I'm going to be there in 2 weeks. I want to take the yacht. We're going to be gone for 3 weeks. Here we're going, or
Yeah.
whatever. And those people, and most of these people that run this thing, I met a lot of these people that run these yachts and stuff like that. They're like
Yeah.
couples or families, and it's where they live, right? They live on the yacht.
Yeah.
They get paid, right? A captain of a yacht makes $150,000 a year. They live
Right.
on the yacht, right? They,
Right.
and then you have your cooks, and so you pay a crew for your yacht. It's $1 million. It essentially is what we
A
figured
year.
out. It's $1 million
Yes.
a year just to maintain a yacht that you own.
Yeah. If you had asked me 5 years ago, you hit $1 billion in the lottery. Are you buying a yacht? Are you buying a plane? Are you buying this? Are you buying that? Heck no. I don't want any of that stuff. I might want to rent a yacht. I might want to rent an airplane, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing it. I'm not buying it. But when you start to realize that for billionaires, they're not buying any of this stuff necessarily for personal use. My belief is anyway. They're buying it because it's a sinkhole.
Mm-hmm.
Their business owns the yacht. Their trust owns the yacht,
Mm-hmm.
and it loses so much money that it helps
Mm-hmm.
them avoid paying some taxes.
Right.
And here's the thing: I still don't want a yacht to own a yacht. I might want to go on one. I still don't want an airplane. But if you tell me I got to give the money to Uncle Sam or own an airplane, oh, I'm buying an airplane.
They are
I'm
way
buying a
nicer
yacht.
than you can ever imagine. Let me
No,
tell
I
you.
know they're
Like,
nice.
they are way, as far as you think, okay, it's just a big boat, it's
No,
just a big,
no.
no, it's an apartment building on
Yes,
the
the
ocean. It
water.
is,
Yeah.
and when I say apartment building, I'm not talking about some cruise ship you went on. I'm
No.
talking about the bedrooms are as big of any house you've ever lived in. The
Right.
TVs are just as big as every house you've ever lived in. Like,
Right.
they live, when they go, these people that buy yachts live like they would live in New York, they would live in Austin. They don't
Right.
sacrifice nothing just because they're
Right.
on the water.
No, 100%. I completely agree with that. And then another thing I wanted to say about this was, there's Grant Cardone, who is a real estate investor and a guy who's kind of whatever. Um, he's all over the internet talking about business and stuff. And I agreed with this sentiment. Was like he's like, dude, single family homes are not for people; they're for banks. And I
That's an
agree with that
awful
one
thing.
sentiment.
No,
Yeah,
you
fine,
shouldn't. That's
okay,
awful.
but I do. And what's interesting is he's like, dude, I don't own a home, and he's been saying this for 5 or 6 years. He's like, I don't own a single family home. He's like, dude, I own commercial property, or he uses the phrase control because legally speaking, he doesn't own it, right?
Right.
But
He also says, like, he doesn't own anything that doesn't make him money, and he
whatever,
doesn't, like, he says these crazy
fine.
things, and good for him.
But but he was going around buying up in last year in 2021. He went out and bought a place out in Malibu, California, and then
Hmm.
he bought a pretty pricey mansion in Miami. And he started making the argument, and somebody called him on it, like one of these interviews he's doing.
Sure.
Somebody goes, "Hey, you bought this house, you bought that house," and he goes, "Yeah. If a billionaire wants one of 10 houses on Billionaire Row in Malibu, there's only 10 of them, and the other 9 guys, they ain't selling. Me, I got a price." And he's like, same thing with Miami. All these billionaires out of New York leaving New York for New York reasons. So,
Well, and
you
he
know,
can make that statement, and people may believe him, and maybe in his mind he believes that. But at the end of the day, when you make a certain amount of money,
Yeah.
right? Once you when you certain look, there should be time in your life you should spend your life educating yourself, and there should be a time in your life where you become pretty comfortable, and then you get to that next level where you're really comfortable. And when you
Right.
get to that really comfortable stage, you should be able to have certain things
Right.
because they no longer. I had a mentor of mine that would say I needed to be a nickel, and the story behind it was is right now, if I asked you and I told you, hey, you can buy this multi-million-dollar mansion right now, you, Danny, can buy
Yeah.
this, and all it's going to cost you is 5 cents. Well, guess
Right.
what? That's what it feels like when Jeff Bezos buys a house. It's a
Yeah.
nickel,
Yeah. It
right?
doesn't matter to
So
him.
it became his mantra of when he came across something, he wanted it to feel like it was a nickel,
Right.
right? Whether and it was the
Yeah.
same guy I was looking at the yachts with, right, or whatever. He
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it became a nickel is when it that was his lifelong business
Goal.
conquering. Like his mantra
Yeah.
was, it needs to be a nickel. I want everything that I do that makes me happy to feel like it's just a nickel. Nobody
Right.
cares, right? Who cares about a nickel, right?
Right.
And that should be everybody's lifelong job. And when you get to that point, somebody like Grant Cardone goes, well, he can say, well, there's only 10 of them and somebody will buy it for me and I'll sell it to him because, right, whatever. But guess what? He likes living in that house. He chose
Yeah.
it for a reason, right? He's not
Right.
living in a rental property that he rents from himself in South Detroit. That it's not the way
Right.
he's living,
No.
right?
No.
And it's because
He's
when you get to there's a certain amount of hustle that gets you to where a certain status,
right.
and then
Right.
that status comes with all the things that you want.
And let me tell you something about Grant Cardone's business, which I think is fantastic. Well, not fantastic. I just think it's fascinating. Is it? They're a syndicated fund, so other people give him money. He goes and gets a loan with those people's money to buy a property that he now
Yeah,
gets 1% for having just put the deal together. That's really all they,
yeah.
right? And then they take the fund takes another percent to pay a management company. So
And then the management company is his management company, so he gets a kickback from that. The
right,
bank and the lenders that he's using probably give him or slash his company kickbacks from the original of the loan, the origination of the
right,
loan.
because right.
He's a credit card. He's making money from everyone.
No, here's how I look. I'm not hating on his business model. I'm just saying that's what it is, and I think it's fascinating.
Hmm.
It's literally two people shaking hands, and he just has his hand on top of just,
And give
yeah,
me this money
yeah,
and
exactly.
this
It's
money.
it's two people where he's just like, hey, Dave, meet Mike. Mike, meet Dave. Now both of you put your money in my pocket, right?
And again, good for him. I'm a capitalist. Good for him.
Hey,
If he
hey,
can do
listen,
it, and they're
both
both willing to
sides,
pay him, and they're both happy. By the way.
exactly. So that's the thing. Both sides are all sides of his transaction. They're not doing it out of like they're forced to do it. They're doing it because they want to do it
Mhm.
because they see value in it.
Well,
Value
he's
is
made
subjective,
something easier. That's what they're paying him for.
sure.
He's made something simpler.
Right. And he's in syndicated funds as a general rule help people access better real estate investments or easier, I should say easier real estate
Hmm.
investments. So if you're you and me and you go, geez, I gotta take 10 grand, I gotta find a house, I gotta flip it, I gotta repair it, and then I gotta put renters in it, then I gotta manage it. Or I can take my 10 grand if I'm worth a certain amount of money, and a lot of funds have you have to be
They have
whatever it's called.
asset minimums and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them do, some of them don't. But it's fascinating because I know a friend of mine has a fund where you don't have those kind of, and they have different
Hmm.
rules. They're all governed by. But they bring in this opportunity to you where if I took my 10 grand, I can't get the kind of
Oh, deal that a
appreciation.
Grant Cardone or any of these
No, not
other
at all.
people. No, and that's
No.
actually why some of those
But
funds have those minimums in there,
right,
and you can say what you want to say. But it's like a poor people tax. It's like
yeah.
we don't want certain. We only want people that have this amount of money, and
Listen, there's an old adage in business. There's always two groups of people that are always going to exist: poor people and wealthy people. And if you pick a business where all you do is cater to wealthy people, you're going to have less problems because the kind of stuff that bothers them, because it's just a nickel to them, like you were saying,
right.
right? So if you pick the kind of business, let's say you want to start a car dealership, you can make lots of money selling crappy cars to poor people and you're going to have a 1-star Google review, even though you bent over backwards to help these people. But they're going to be like, you sold me a 300,000-mile car and it broke after I drove it for 2 years. And it's like,
Mhm.
or you can go start a Rolls Royce dealership. They're never going to drive their car. It's always going to be in for service. You're going to make money left and right, and they don't care.
Yep.
The car, the freaking Rolls Royce Phantom can never run. And it's like they don't even know what's going on because they have a driver and then they have a garage manager, and the garage manager tells the driver to take the Rolls Royce in for service. So all he does is he calls up the dealership and they send out a truck, and you don't know what the heck's going on. And
Right.
Rolls Royce gives you another Rolls Royce to get driven around in, so you don't care. So you don't know what's going on. And then you're like, why am I and then it's like, how was your service? Give us 5 stars. And the guy's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, someone was I was listening to a podcast, and they're like, they were out with Jeff, and someone else was saying we were
Mhm.
all out to dinner and Jeff Bezos didn't have a wallet with him. Like, he paid for the dinner. That, like, I don't know what happens. Like, does the French Laundry just send an invoice to his office or something?
Well,
But
if you're Jeff Bezos, I'm sure even though he doesn't have a wallet, his assistant's assistant has a wallet.
but they're like, there was no assistant in sight, but somehow one of his assistants like popped out of a bush somewhere, like Homer Simpson meme. It's just like,
Exactly.
we'll take care of that.
Yeah. Well, and again, and this is true of the same guy I was just talking about, right? Like,
Yeah.
he'll go to a place and forget his wallet, and whether it's the restaurant that facilitates it, and I've seen this with him in
Yeah.
places where they're like, Mr. So and so, would you like us to call your office and we'll take, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the restaurant makes that phone call and facilitates the payment,
Yeah.
or we'll catch you on the next time you come in, or
Right.
like, it's never a problem when it
Right.
comes to certain, you know what I mean? Because they know, especially in areas where those people frequent, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
they're
yeah.
there,
They're
right?
not worried about it. Yeah.
They're not worried about it. All right, Dan, before we wrap this up, I want to get you, we kind of missed this story last week, so I want to bring it up now because I think
Okay.
it's a great story.
It's
Is
gonna be so stupid.
So let me paint you a picture, Danny.
Oh no.
It's late at night. You're on your way home, right? It's been a long day,
Mm.
right? You're winding down, but you look down and your car is just almost out of gas, right? You've eaten dinner hours ago, so you're like, you know what? I'm going to stop in. I'm going to get gas. I'm going to go in to my good old local Circle K. I'm going to get gas. I'm going to get me a hot dog off the roller. I'm going to get me a bag of chips.
Talk about getting gas. Hi-yo. Pew 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 pew.
I'm going to grab me a hot dog. And then,
Yeah.
starting in 2023, in Florida, in Canada, and probably in a couple of other places, guess what, Danny? Guess what you can also pick up after your long day with your hot dog and your bag of chips and your gas? What is it, Danny? You know what it is.
You can get a cannabis joint.
You can. Cannabis, edibles, certain things like this that are legal in certain places. Canada
Right.
has now partnered, or Circle K, I'm sorry, has now
Yeah.
partnered with a couple of different, growers and creators of certain cannabis products that will be selling them in their Circle K gas station locations.
I love it, dude. I love it. Um, is Circle K? Yeah, okay, it is American. I thought it was.
Mhm.
Did you know? Do you know where Circle K was founded?
I do not. I remember having them around when I was younger up in Dallas. We had them in Dallas. I don't know
Yeah.
of any here in Austin, in the Austin
Right.
area,
No,
but we definitely had them in Dallas.
No, there's a Circle K off of Palmer. I forgot the cross street. I think it's Anderson Mill, maybe. There's a Circle K over there. The reason I know that is I always make the joke about Indian gas station owners, and people are like, "That's a stereotype," and then I'm like, "No, I'm talking about 5 places like near my house."
Right.
But anyways, El Paso, Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, good for them. But look, this is a partnership that you're going to see this coming up. I mean, I know there's several states this
Yeah,
fall
I'm
that there's
surprised-
several
I'm
states on the
surprised that
ballot.
this is-
You know,
the thing that's surprising me is Florida legalized.
well, Florida legalized, and then you have, of course, not a political show, but last week Biden came out and of course decriminalized simple marijuana from a federal perspective. Also
Right.
pushed it down to states to say, "Hey, let's do this." Also told the FDA, which is the one that currently has it as a Schedule 1 narcotic,
Right.
um, also pushed the FDA to re-examine whether it should continue to be a Schedule 1 narcotic, because that's really how you get it
Right.
decriminalized, is you
Decriminalized.
get the FDA to
Like,
take it out of the
I,
Schedule 1.
so like there's the stuff that the 2018 Farm Bill legalized a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I've had back pain for a long time, and so I started taking some of the fully 50 state legal stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then my back stopped hurting, and then I started sleeping great. So I think this is great.
You think
Um,
bring it on, huh? You think bring it
total
is not legal in Texas, so
no,
of course I don't know anyone that would use this in Texas.
of course not.
You're
This is
not going to find
glorified
it in
in
Circle K in
Texas.
Texas. No Texans
No,
use any kind of cannabis of any kind
no,
of
of
what
course not. It's
variety.
completely illegal. And
Right.
if you want to get turned up in Texas, you do it the proper way with cough syrup. At least that's how you do it in Houston.
Or you
So
take your
yeah,
happy ass to Colorado. Either way.
yeah, fair enough.
So,
But yeah,
which is funny because if you leave Texas, I do a lot of traveling. I've got kids, wife. We take a bunch of vacations every year. I do a
yeah,
lot of traveling, and sometimes we drive if it's anywhere near, because the boys like to drive right to these different places. They really prefer it over flying, which is crazy to me. I like to just be there. But whatever.
yeah. I don't.
Okay.
Some people care about the journey. Those people are weird. I'm all about the
Me
destination.
too. I want to be there as quickly as possible. My wife and kids love to jump in the car with the dog, hit the road for days on end. It's just their thing. Anyway,
Yeah,
but if you're driving outside of Texas, it's really funny because these different states legalizing it in different ways. It's funny, as soon as you cross a state line, you start seeing those, which is funny to me because everybody knows the Red Cross symbol, right?
yes, but it's
Well, in
green.
every state that I know of, they have
Yeah,
taken that Red Cross symbol and just made
yeah,
it green, and that
yeah.
is now the universal symbol for
We got the
we
goods.
got the goods, right?
Yeah,
The first
you,
time I
you,
saw it, I think we were driving into Colorado, and the first
uh,
time I saw it, it looked like a medical billboard,
that's the point. Yeah,
and I thought, but it had a green one, and I'm like, does Colorado have medical signs different than
yeah.
everywhere else?
Yeah,
Like,
because in Texas you'll see signs like hospital. It's a blue sign.
right.
Yeah, and that's it's just like, hey, Willie Nelson here. You trying
Yeah,
to Willie Nelson it
exactly.
up?
It
Yeah,
took me several of those signs,
to
several of
realize.
seeing, because
Yeah,
you would see a sign and then you would come across like an exit, or you would see the building, which is
yeah,
typically also green, painted
yeah,
green, and I'm
yeah.
like, that does not look like a medical center to me. And then it
It
took me
is.
several of them to go,
Uh, yeah.
oh,
I
yeah.
had this phenomenon. I was in Portland not too long ago, and they also went that route. And I was there, and I was looking at all these places, and I was whoever I was with was like, "Yeah, my mom used to get migraines, and we just started kind of slipping her some of this stuff, like, and she started feeling better, and then we just told her what we were doing, and then she was fine with it because he's like, well, if it helps, because older people have perceptions of what this
Oh,
stuff is.
well, of course, and that's what it all is. So,
Hey, listen, I have never consumed the non-legal stuff that is trying to be legalized. I've never consumed it before. I've only taken the this 2018 Farm Bill post that legal stuff, and
I won't
I
make
like
that
it.
claim, but
What?
I won't make that claim.
Well,
But
but here's what I will tell you. I have stopped consuming alcohol, period, because if me and my buddies are gonna go sit around a campfire, I don't want to have a brewski because the next day I'm gonna be dragging. But if I pop a couple of gummies, we can all go to Pluto. Okay.
we can all go to play, and you feel just fine the next day. You do, you do.
No, I don't feel fine the next day. I feel better than fine. I wake up, I go hit the speed bag for 100 rounds. I go for a jog. All right. I start doing push-ups. I mean eggs instead of pancakes. I feel great.
I think that's the future and business opportunity. Believe
That's
me,
right.
business opportunity. But I think that's all we
Absolutely.
got this week, right, Danny? Or
Well,
until
I do
Friday.
want to end. No, yeah. So I do want to end on one thing. We're heading into Spooky Day on Sunday. And I just wanted to say this. I think we should replace Halloween. We have enough days here to do it still with the Purge.
No, we shouldn't.
Yes,
And
you
if
should.
you're worried about the old conspiracy theory of people are giving your kids drugs through their candy, there's not a druggie that would spend their hard-earned money giving your kids any kind of drug, okay?
For
Not a
free.
single
That to
one.
me is
Not a
that's
single
to
one
me
of
is
them.
that to me is my favorite conspiracy. I, however, will be handing out USB thumb drives with information that will get you canceled from Morgan, JP Morgan Chase as a customer. I will be handing out thumb drives to children that look like a Kit Kat, but it's not.
Do not leave your Danny with your children. All right, folks, we'll see you on Friday. Appreciate
That's
you. See you
right.
soon.